It's a few minutes early, so we'll go ahead and get started in just a couple minutes, and I will pull up our slides, but I did want to encourage everyone to participate throughout the program. So feel free to ask questions in the Q&A is sort of the place where during this webinar that you'll be able to interact. So I'll invite anybody, if you have questions, either about our topic, which is immune support and anti-inflammation. So if you have any questions now related to that subject, you're welcome to post. This is definitely an opportunity to ask other nutrition and cancer questions. So if there are other topics outside of our topic today, we will also have some time at the end. So feel free to, write in at any point in time. I just want to really be available to answer the kinds of questions, although this is a big topic, so I'm sure we have a lot of questions about this, especially this time of year with immune support. If you've got, kids or anything like that, even, outside of kids, there's a lot going around. So we all want to support our immune systems. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna share my screen. We are recording, and the slides will also be available. I don't know, I'm actually gonna drop this in here. I don't know if anybody's had a chance yet to take a look, but we have a lot of content on the NECS website in terms of nutrition. So there's a whole web page that's built out and more information being added all the time. There's also additional documents that your provider can pull for you from our shared drive. So if you go to New England cancerspecialist.org, that is the best way to share my screen here. It's really the best way to kind of find this nutrition site. So I'm actually going to show you really quick, and then we'll get going. So I went to newenglandcancerspecialist.org. And then if you go under support and well-being, you'll see nutrition is right here. You can go directly to education materials, recipes, and videos like recorded workshops, and those are here as well. Or you can just kind of go to our homepage here, and you can get into each of those sections. So there's tons of education materials, and as I mentioned, there's a lot more that will be posted shortly. And if you take a look at the recipes, they all have, we have a lot so far, they all have nutrition information. So if you're looking for extra protein, extra fiber, or, wondering anything like that, the nutrition information is here. And these are organized right now by symptom management, but to be honest, they're great, right? So like this salad jar, whether you fatigue or not, is really helpful. So, you can kind of play around there. And then, as I mentioned, you can get more information on upcoming workshops. So you can register right away. So this is tonight, immune fighting and anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Next month, very fitting, is all about heart health, which is important. So we're going to kind of bust some myths and go through some topics related to that. We're going to touch on it today because it relates to immunity, but we'll get more into gut health and the microbiome in March. And so you can see here we have quite a few really great topics coming up all the way through May. And then you can get into past workshops and watch these recordings from those as well. So it's a little tour of some exciting things. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get started with our topic for today. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen, and just gonna make it a little easier to see. Okay, perfect. So big topic. I get a lot of questions about this from people going through cancer treatment and just people in general. There's a lot of information online, on social media, on TV, and some of it is fantastic and accurate, and some of it is not. So this is where, again, we can kind of do some myth busting and talk through what's really real, what you should pay attention to, what you can ignore. But our focus is on immune supportive as well as anti-inflammatory nutrition. And there's a lot of overlap And, we've talked about things like Mediterranean diet. And we've had other topics that you're going to start, if you've attended or watched past workshops, you're going to see how these topics really are interconnected to each other. So some of this information might even sound familiar to you. But how do we eat to support our immune system and reduce inflammation? And then what are other things that can impact these topics? So eating more plant-based foods is really one of the best ways to support your immune system and reduce inflammation in the body. Plant-based foods, as you'll learn throughout this session, have natural compounds that give our immune cells the fuel they need to function properly, and also to kind of help reduce excessive inflammation. Now, I guess we should talk about, like, what are these things? What do these words mean? We hear them all the time. We know what your immune system is. It's kind of what helps to keep you healthy, kind of help fight off diseases, and really is kind of your body's way of controlling processes like aging. I mean, we're all going to age, but sort of the experience of what that aging looks like. So kind of more successful aging, as well as help to fight against cancer after a diagnosis, help support your body in recovery as you're going through treatment, and support you against infections and other illnesses. We think about inflammation. So, this is like such a big kind of popular topic. So reducing inflammation, right? So it kind of does come off as inflammation is bad. Now, if we didn't have any inflammation, that would be really bad, actually. So let's say you get a paper cut and you didn't have inflammation, you would literally bleed to death. Right. So we need inflammation in our body. We need some. It is a way, it's like swelling. It's a way of, it's a function that your body requires to live and be healthy. The challenge, and the reason why we talk about reducing it, is that a lot of modern culture, and particularly, American westernized culture and diets and lifestyle habits, cause us to have an excessive amount of inflammation in the body. So if you're thinking about kind of back to the kind of swelling, if you have like joint pain, and too much inflammation, or you see those ads on TV for like when your muscles are sore and inflamed, you can put creams on to bring the inflammation down. Or if you've had an injury, kind of swells up and then it starts to come down. When you have excessive amounts, it can be detrimental, and we can see that and feel that, like, let's say in our joints, or from like an injury, you sprain your ankle. But there's a lot of other inflammation, like in your blood vessels, and around different parts of your body internally, that we may not kind of feel as directly, but that can be detrimental in terms of overall health and wellness. And so we'll get into that a little bit more as we go. So just to kind of, a little bit of education there. Okay, so besides your eating habits, there are other lifestyle habits that can impact your immune system. So exercise is beneficial, not overdoing it, but not underdoing it. So kind of finding that sweet spot of moderate physical activity that's regular, not smoking, or working with your provider in terms of quitting if you are. Because smoking can reduce your immune function. Stress can compromise your immune function. So the more stress, the more susceptible you are to illnesses. More sleep helps to boost your immune system. Sleep is we talked about this in the last workshop. Sleep is really when your immune system can rejuvenate itself to its best potential, is during sleep. Sleep is also key for reducing that excessive inflammation, and happiness. Actually, being happy can strengthen your immune system. And so it's not like a light point. I mean, it is a light point because talking about being happy, but it is true, and something to really think about. So what brings you joy in your life is really a key part of supporting your immune system as well. Okay, so how do we optimize our immune system naturally. Now, obviously, if you have an illness, like let's say you have an infection and your doctor needs to prescribe a medication, that is certainly an important and one of the many ways to optimize your immune system when you need it. But we want to kind of look at these lifestyle habits that you can also do, particularly in a preventive sense, to really support your immune system. Okay, so foods that boost, support's really technically the right word, your immunity, but you'll hear in the press like boosting, foods that reduce inflammation, foods that weaken your immune system, foods that increase inflammation. So we're gonna kind of go through what to do more of and what to try to minimize. Okay, so as I mentioned, an introduction would be really thinking about a plant-based diet. Now we're going to get into some of the semantics around what does that mean? Like, what do you call yourself? Am I a vegetarian? Am I a vegan? Am I a pescatarian? All that kind of stuff. But what we've seen through research now for many decades is that a lack of fruits and vegetables, along with an abundance of processed foods, being sedentary, and other common features like being stressed, not sleeping, all together can promote an excess of inflammation in the body and can also weaken your immune system. So it isn't just your diet, right? I think that's really important here, but we are going to focus a little bit more on the nutrition aspect. But it's kind of a perfect storm of many things. So there are a lot of intervention points that you can think about making some adjustments. So as I mentioned, research shows that inflammation, it's not just about, spraining your ankle or having like an achy back or, carpal tunnel or other things like that, or, neck pain. Inflammation is a process that's really at the heart of many common major illnesses, including things like diabetes. We'll talk more about heart disease. Cancer results in chronic inflammation. It doesn't mean that eating an anti-inflammatory diet is 100% going to prevent developing cancer, but cancer as a process involves your immune system and involves inflammation. So sort of a chronic inflammation, which is part of where you see many symptoms. Treatment can do this as well. So things like fatigue. Inflammation also plays a role in brain health. So, controlling inflammation can help in terms of cognitive function and reducing risk for things like Alzheimer's, as well as stroke. So it's really important we'll learn more about this in the heart health, but we want to really reduce the inflammation that our blood vessels experience to really support keeping our bodies healthy. So you might find some of this a little repetitive, but that's like sort of intentional in the sense that we really do want to emphasize how do we get these plant foods into our diet, right? And it's not just fruits and vegetables. So spices and herbs are also really critical. And so that's something I'm going to have you think about. What are some spices and what are some herbs that you like that you could integrate as well? And then keeping our stress under control. So if you weren't able to attend the December workshop, I would encourage you to go back and watch it. And there were some resources along with that around sleep and around stress management, because that is also going to really be beneficial in terms of supporting your immune system and reducing inflammation. So an abundance of plants. This is the theme. If you remember nothing else from today, and the theme of many of our workshops is getting an abundance of plants in your diet. And there are so many options out there. So plant-based diets are ideal to reduce inflammation. Why? Let's go through some reasons why that's true. So number one, cleanup. So plant-based foods have compounds that support our body's natural processes like detoxification. So for example, cruciferous vegetables have some of the natural plant-based compounds in cruciferous vegetables can fuel enzymes in our liver that are part of our natural detoxification process. Now, I'm not talking about some TikToker discussing cleanse for detoxing you after the holidays. I mean, in a very scientific kind of literal sense, there are compounds in these plant foods that help processes that are already happening in our body, right? So we're just supporting those. We also know in terms of cleanup that fiber in our diet is very important for healthy bowel movements, right? So regulating constipation and just supporting gut health, which we're going to get into a lot more in our next one. And then there are many, when you say cancer fighting, kind of those immune supportive compounds. Okay, so there's sort of the cleanup, detox support realm. We'll look more at that in a minute. Now, pigments, we're going to talk more about eating the rainbow. And so what makes a fruit or vegetable have its color? They are all types of naturally occurring plant compounds that help us in different ways. Okay, so anthocyanin is an example here. It's a blue and purple pigment. So it's in eggplant, it's in purple cabbage, it's in blueberries, any blue and purple fruit or vegetable. Anthocyanin is an antioxidant that has a very potent, like called free radical scavenging potential. And also, when we talk about this in Heart Health Month, the anthocyanin is really key for reducing inflammation within our blood vessels. So that's a big one that can help us reduce inflammation. Vitamin C, again, so we have like a tomato, it has the red pigment, which is really helpful, but vitamin C is in a lot of food. So we're gonna get more into that in a second, but when we think about immune support, I put the tomato here because that's unusual. Usually you're like, oh, vitamin C, we all think of oranges, but there are other foods that are rich in vitamin C too, and I've listed some of them here. Now, I mentioned, like, when we talk about an abundance of plants, like some people might be like, awesome, I've been wanting to do that, I'm really focused on it. Other people might be understandably a little worried, like, oh no, I have to give up meat, I have to give up chicken or fish or whatever. And that's actually not true. So we're seeking an abundance of plants, and you know, sort of a reduction in things like red meat, but you do not need to be 100% plant-based in order to get these benefits. So you might be, these are just terms, you might be vegetarian. Vegetarian means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some vegetarians include eggs, some vegetarians also include dairy. You might be vegan, which is all plants, so then there's no dairy, there's no eggs, there's no chicken, meat, etc. You might be more pescatarian, where you have fish, and potentially also eggs, maybe yes, maybe no. Flexitarian is kind of a made-up word, but just means you go back and forth between these options. When we talked about the Mediterranean diet a couple months ago, which again, you can see the recording, these themes should start to sound familiar to you, right? So again, a Mediterranean diet, which is what is now recommended in terms of cancer prevention and promoting survivorship. That Mediterranean diet is founded in plant-based foods, not just fruits and vegetables, but nuts and seeds and whole grains and legumes. And then also does include some lean animal protein. So things like fish and eggs, or even chicken might be a part of that as well. And then healthy fat. So this is really interesting. Foods that have fat in them are very important, and they can really relate into inflammation. So many certain types of fats can actually act to promote inflammation in our body, and certain types of fats can help through different mechanisms to reduce inflammation. So for example, I'm sure you've heard omega-3 fats. Those are healthy fats. So I have an avocado here, which is more of a, like we'll get into it with the heart disease, more of like a monounsaturated, but omega-3 would be things like salmon, sardines, walnuts, black seeds, chia seeds, for example, okay? So omega-3 fats are very anti-inflammatory, but omega-6 fats, which are still plant-based, do tend to be more promoting of inflammation in excess. Now, when we say reduce intake, omega-6 is in a lot of other seeds, and other kinds of oils and things like that. Having some in your diet is great and important and healthy. So typically you kind of want like a ratio of like 4 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Now don't try to think, oh my gosh, I need to figure out what I'm doing. This is just conceptually, I want you to hear the numbers. I don't want you to like try to adhere to them because it's very arbitrary. But we kind of want like a 4 to 1. The typical American diet is more like 14 to 20 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. So our whole message here is that generally in the American diet, we're not eating enough omega-3 foods, and we're eating too many omega-6 foods in processed food form. So like corn oil, soybean oil, things like that are in a lot of packaged processed foods, right? Okay, that's a lot. So ask questions if you have them. But I'm going to ask you some questions now. So ask me questions, especially if that was sort of a little sciencey. I want to answer them. But secondly, I want to find out from everybody here, because we can all benefit from new ideas. It's a new year. Let's get some new ideas going. So what are some of your favorites? When we're talking about eating the rainbow, what are some of your favorite colorful fruits and vegetables that you like to have? So go ahead, type those into, I don't know if the chat works. I think you've got to go in the Q&A, but whatever you have access to, please type them in so that we can all benefit and get some new ideas going. We all get stuck in a rut with, we're eating broccoli every night. It's healthy, but we want something new. So I want to hear that first. What are some of your favorites? I'll share some of mine. I absolutely love carrots. I love avocados. Those are just two of my favorites. I mean, I obviously like everything in this picture. This looks amazing. I've been doing a lot of red cabbage lately because it's in season. Yes, baked sweet potatoes, amazing. Ooh, and a sweet potato with rosemary. I like the inclusion of the herbs and spices. We got blueberries, prunes, carrots, red cabbage. Awesome. Okay, good. So please, everybody, feel free to keep sharing, because as I mentioned, somebody might be like, oh yeah, I haven't had red cabbage in forever. It's so vibrant. It's a little easier. I personally find it a little easier to digest. Green cabbage can be too, but that purple cabbage it's a little bit different, and it has those anthocyanin, that purple pigment, right? So it's a nice way to build that in. My next one, and I'm going to show you a list in a minute, but let's just kind of, actually, we'll come back to the vegetable one, actually, because I'm going to show you a list. But herbs and spices. So we saw rosemary. What are some herbs and spices that you use on a routine basis? They could be dried or fresh. This is a great list. Spinach, sweet potato, blueberry, red pepper. Love it. The peppers are a great idea. We've got garlic always. Yes, a lot of garlic. I love it. Cucumber, tomato, cauliflower, potato, blueberry, strawberry. Excellent. So some other seasonings, I really like to use cumin. Yeah, Joni, I'm with you. I put cumin in so many things. I have been adding turmeric a lot more. It's not really a strong flavor, but cumin is something that I really find wakes up a dish in a big way. Thyme is another excellent choice. We've got more garlic lovers. Coriander, that's an excellent one. Cumin and turmeric, very good. Basil, oregano, thyme, cumin, and turmeric. These are fantastic. A lot of turmeric, that's great. Cilantro, it's funny, some people don't like cilantro, some people love cilantro. It's a very refreshing kind of herb. That's a great choice. Parsley is another really good one as well. Turmeric and chicken soup. Yes, the turmeric goes so well into soups and stews. I often will add it even into rice when we're making rice. Coriander, this is great. Okay, so a lot of good ideas here. Cracked red pepper, to kind of spice things up a little bit can go a long way. So Laura has a good question. She says, I heard that turmeric is needed to be cooked with fats to receive the benefits. So yes, that is actually true. And so some of these wonderful compounds that are in the plant foods are what we call fat soluble, meaning that we need to consume them in the presence of a fat in order to absorb them. They kind of like goes with like. Some nutrients like vitamin C, for example, folic acid, those are water soluble. So they don't require the healthy fat partner. So in this example, let's say you're making chicken soup. If you're putting in some olive oil or some avocado oil, for example, it doesn't have to be a lot. You've got that fat in there to facilitate the absorption of something like the curcumin that is part of the turmeric. Same thing with like tomatoes. So like cooked tomatoes with say olive oil or avocado or any other kind of healthy fat, you'll absorb more of the antioxidant lycopene, which is really helpful for your immune system as well. So kind of having some healthy fats as part of your meal is a really great way. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be as simple as a drizzle of olive oil. And that'll kind of do the trick right there, which is probably part of why it's such an important component of the Mediterranean diet. Now, another example, it doesn't have to be an oil. Let's say you're having salmon. I put turmeric on, I'm actually making salmon tonight. I put turmeric and lots of garlic and cumin on the salmon. The other thing, and that's a healthy fat. The other thing with turmeric to really get the most out of the anti-inflammatory compounds and antioxidants is black pepper. So when you have, there's like food synergy. When you add just a little bit of just regular old, like, black pepper with the turmeric, it will allow your body to keep those compounds more potent in your system longer. You won't break it down as fast. So a little healthy fat and a little black pepper in cooking with turmeric is a really great way to kind of boost the optimization of its benefits. Curry, basil. I forgot to say basil and rosemary. Love it. Yes, Irene, thank you. Those are some fantastic herbs as well. And yes, Maxine's on board with the black pepper. Joni, another really good question here. Okay, so Joni heard turmeric is not compatible with certain meds. That is in supplement form. So eating turmeric is healthy and a great suggestion. The amount we're talking about is a fraction of what people would actually consume volume-wise, say over in Asia, like in India, for example. When you hear, which is true, to avoid turmeric with, for example, radiation treatment, because it's an antioxidant, or certain medications, that refers to supplements. So a lot of people take turmeric supplements to reduce like aches and pains, try to reduce inflammation, things like that. So you do want to be very careful when it comes to supplements. So we want to go to food first. It's safer. And because supplements are not regulated in this country, it could potentially, the food could even be more effective and potent. Supplements are like case by case. So for some people, certain brands of turmeric can certainly be helpful in terms of like certain types of inflammation, like aches and pains in joints and things like that. But it's not something everyone should go run out and order. You want to definitely talk to your doctor. You want to talk to your dietitian, your pharmacist, before you would take any of this stuff as a supplement. But in a food, you can cook with it tonight, and that's a great idea. So there's a big difference between the foods and the supplements. And those are great, great questions. Okay, now I'm going to show you, oops, going the wrong way. Okay, I don't know if you can really read this, but this is like, it's not really a master list. I'm sure you can think of more ideas, and don't feel that you have to read all of this, but these were kind of a combination of trying to think of as many fruits and vegetables that fall into the rainbow of these color families to start to spark some ideas. So either something that you already have on your radar or something you see on this list. My question from the previous slide is, what is one vegetable that is not part of your regular routine that you would be willing to either try for the first time or start to incorporate, like you've had it before, but now you're going to incorporate it? So I'll give you my example, are radishes. Sometimes we get a farm share box. And so lately there've been a lot of great potato. There's been like purple potatoes, there's been purple cabbage, but there are these huge radishes. Now, I'm not someone that thinks of radishes on a regular basis. I don't really buy them at the grocery store, but now that they've come in this farm box and I want to use them, I've just been slicing them and putting them into salads, or putting them on like tacos. It's such a welcome new flavor, a little peppery, refreshing. So for me, radishes are like kind of, even though I've eaten them before in my life, like a newer vegetable that I want to use on a more regular basis. And you'll see in a little bit some of the benefits of radishes. But take a look at this list quickly and kind of share with us what is like a new vegetable? Because this can be an action step that you can leave with. What's a new vegetable or new to your routine that you would be willing to include either more regularly or try for the first time ever? Like maybe you've never had celery root, or you've only ever bought white button mushrooms and you might want to try shiitake mushrooms from the grocery store, for example. Okay, great. Ooh, daikon radish is a substitute for crackers. Yes, that's a great idea. And jicama. I don't know if you've ever tried jicama. It's super popular. They have Trader Joe's has like jicama wraps. Like jicama is like a woody looking, like almost like a big water chestnut that you can peel, and it's very fresh like a radish. So yes, I love it. Daikon and other radishes can be like almost like a wrap, or something you can kind of munch on that's crunchy. Kohlrabi, I like that, Holly. You'll have to share how you like to use kohlrabi. That's another really healthy vegetable that's definitely on the more kind of like unique side of things. So if you have any favorite recipes or how to use it, I have used that before too. Please share. Okay, great. So let's go on. I mentioned cruciferous vegetables quite a few times, and we've been chatting now about some options that fall in that family. So we talked about pigment in the rainbow. Earlier, we talked about this family can help us with cleanup and kind of that natural detox. So they have anti-cancer properties, essentially through immune support. We mentioned they promote natural liver detoxification. They are rich in vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, which are plant-based compounds, and they're fantastic for your gut health. Not only do they have fiber, but the sulfur compounds, kind of the gassy parts, are really beneficial for your microbiome, which can in turn even help to lower cholesterol levels. So, for example, you can make them less gassy by cooking. Okay, so here's like a little quiz. And then we're going to go over the names of all the members of this family. But does anybody know what these pictures are? So the one that's on my far left, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what it is. It's delicious. It's a common one over the holidays. So this one right here. But does anybody have a guess? They're beautiful. What's this in the middle? And bonus points, what's this one down here? It's on my bottom right, kind of the spiky vegetable. Anybody know what these are? Yeah, so Brussels sprouts are on the left. What do you think is in the middle? Ooh, bok choy is a good guess, but I'm not sure it's bok choy, but it is, bok choy is a healthy cruciferous vegetable. I'm thinking this middle one is like more, well, they're all cabbages, but I think the middle one is more of like a cabbage or kale probably. So the right one, it's like in the broccoli family, like these all are, but it's got a more, I'm like obsessed with the Food Network and Chopped, so it's got more of a different name. I've seen it in the grocery store. It sounds very Mediterranean, I'll say that. In the meantime, oh, good. Okay, Laura, I'm going to come back to your question in a minute about eggplant. That's a good question. Okay, this spiky one on the far right, it's called Romanesco. And so that is another one that is a really kind of cool example of a cruciferous vegetable. So you can find that in the grocery store and you can kind of cook it. Now, when we think about seasonal eating, cruciferous vegetables happen to be something here in New England that are in season. And so this is why you're going to find, so are potatoes, and you're going to find a lot of these in things like farm boxes. So this is a list of some cruciferous veggies. And so we've actually talked about a lot of these here, but I'm curious if there are any on the list that you're surprised by or any that you haven't had before. And you can impress your friends with your Romanesco broccoli. Okay, so cruciferous vegetables would include Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, radishes are in this family, arugula, which is great, so it's a good salad green, kale, bok choy we mentioned, mustard greens are part of it, collard greens, cabbage of both kinds, wasabi, horseradish, and daikon, so that real strong flavor, watercress, which is another green, turnips, rutabagas, which are also very seasonal and local, kohlrabi, as we mentioned, tatsoi is kind of similar to bok choy a little bit. Tatsoi is, it's another green, it looks like bok choy. So it's very similar to that. I've seen it more at like a farmer's market or certain kind of grocery stores. So here's sort of to summarize this section, and then we're going to kind of keep going, is to think about some commitments or action steps. So these are kind of the recommendations when we think about immune support and reducing inflammation. So 5 a day at least. So ideally, we're having 2 fruits every day. So like pomegranates are in here. Grapefruit does have a lot of drug interactions, even as a food. So do be careful about that. But these are just examples. Pomegranates are excellent and they are in season. But ideally, you want 2 fruits a day. So for example, maybe one of those is from the berry family, and then the other is any kind of fruit, kiwi, pineapple, persimmon, you name it. Half a banana technically counts as a serving. So not that you need to limit yourself necessarily, but the serving sizes are not that big. So don't get hung up on that. And then frozen is just as good as fresh. So if you're going to make a smoothie, or if, certain things are out of season, like I'll take frozen blueberries in the winter and make them into like a little sauce that my kids can put on their, pancakes or waffles. You can definitely look to frozen produce. You want 3 or more veggies. Really, it's ideally 5 or more, but 3 is the minimum. So one of those should be from the cruciferous family, and look for any kind of local option, seasonal. And again, frozen is just as good as fresh. So if you're making chicken soup and you've got frozen spinach on hand, that's great. Less sugar. We had a whole workshop on this, so I'll refer you back to that. But we looked at that in terms of lower sugar is important when we think about supporting immunity and reducing inflammation. Excessive amounts of added sugar can contribute to more inflammation and also can be a little bit weakening for the immune system as well. And then we talked a lot about healthy fats and really looking for the right type of fat to support our immune system and really to help us reduce inflammation. So that would be things like nuts and seeds and nut butters, olive oil. Seeds would include like chia and flax and hemp, extra virgin olive oil and fatty fish. These are all good examples. Okay, so components of a balanced diet. So again, this is a way of kind of putting this all together and thinking about that overarching lifestyle that is anti-inflammatory and immune supportive. So we have what's called the balanced plate method, and we talked about this one before as well, where you want, it doesn't have to be a salad, they can be cooked, but you want like half your plate to be veggies, or a significant 50% of your bowl. Let's say you want about a quarter as a whole grain or starchy vegetable like those sweet potatoes. So again, not a lot, but some. And then some protein, whether it could be salmon, it could be chickpeas, it could be a variety, and then some healthy fats along with it. Alcohol is another, and we talked about this in the sugar workshop, and as well as sleep and stress. Excessive amounts of alcohol, or frequent, doesn't have to be a lot, but frequent alcohol intake is not only a risk factor for certain cancers, it will absolutely increase inflammation and be harder on your immune system. So it can weaken your immune system, make you more susceptible to catching colds and getting, catching like a infection or a virus. So we're going to talk more about alcohol with heart disease too. And again, it's in moderation. So go back to the sugar workshop and look for some of those mocktail recipes. But cutting down on alcohol can be really helpful as we think about supporting immunity and reducing inflammation. And as to why that's true, there are many reasons, right? Even sleep disruption. As we learned, sleep is really key for our immune system, and drinking alcohol is going to interrupt your sleep too. Again, it doesn't mean don't ever drink, but giving yourself streaks without, as well as just in general having less, is going to be helpful. We talked about the sugars. We talked about plant foods, so not just fruits and vegetables, but foods with plant protein. So that's a good question for the group. What are some plant foods that are rich in protein? What would be some things that come to mind that are a good protein source that come from the plant world? We talked about eating rainbow and Mediterranean. So you can kind of type those in. And Laura, I'm not forgetting about the eggplant. I'm definitely going to get to that. Lentils. Excellent, Laura. Yes, lentils. Lentils are great. I like putting lentils in like soups and all kinds of things. They really mix in well. Tofu is great. Yeah, tofu, edamame, tempeh, miso. It's kind of natural soy foods are a great source of protein. Yep, peanut butter, all the nuts, all the nut butter. So peanut butter, peanuts, almonds, almond butter, walnuts, pistachios, pistachio butter, cashews, cashew butter, all of those. Those are all great. And seeds. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, which are also a good source of omega-3. Excellent. Other beans too. So black beans, chickpeas. These are all pinto beans, kidney beans, peas. Peas are a really good protein source. So split peas, like dried split peas and dried, I've been using red, but you could do green, any color lentil. I found that if I'm using a slow cooker or making like a soup, if you let it cook long enough, I don't have to cook them separately. They'll just kind of cook in there. But those are all really great for protein. So all this stuff on here, we're going to get more into next month, but it's all just to say that your gut health is really key for regulating immunity and even inflammation. So we'll learn more about the microbiome, but we know that having a strong gut, meaning that the lining is really has a lot of integrity through eating a healthy diet, having a lot of fiber-rich plant foods, that is, and other kind of fermented foods, that is a really great way to support your immune system. About 70 to 80% of our immune cells actually live in our gut. So your gut health is a key component for your immune health. And that one's a little bit of a surprise sometimes. So we mentioned fiber. So supporting a healthy gut and supporting that immunity really comes from having more fiber in our diet, which comes from all these wonderful plants, foods that we're talking about. And I guess I meant to put beans and legumes on this list because they definitely have plenty of fiber. And so with things like edamame, which is like a soybean, that's another good source of fiber as well. And so there's some other foods on here which you can kind of see, and more information, handouts that are on our website as well, talking about foods that are rich in fiber. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of get into, and I won't like make this too long, but some specific nutrients that are connected to immunity and anti-inflammation, and kind of talk through some key nutrients and also where you get those in your diet. But before we do that, I'll answer Laura's question here about the eggplant. So she's asking about using eggplant more. So she's asking about lectins and that there's mixed information. So lectins are like a protein that's kind of like, I don't know if anybody remembers, like, you know, before there was like even direct TV or Wi-Fi or, you know, Comcast or whatever, I don't know, whatever your service provider is for your TV, there were like antennas that had to go like on the roof of your house, and they have all these little parts that stick off. So that's kind of what like lectins are. They're kind of like a protein, like an expression that is naturally in certain foods. A couple years ago, there was a doctor that sort of did a little bit of research on this, but mostly wrote a lot of books and did a lot of marketing and a lot of blogs about this concept, and decided, you know, among many other kinds of people like this, that there's like one reason why everybody's having trouble with everything in their life, and kind of chalked it up to this thing called lectins. It really hasn't held a lot of water. It really hasn't, you know, kind of proven out to be as significant as once thought. And what ended up happening is that it freaked people out and people stopped eating a lot of plant-based foods, right? So why is it that beans make you gassy? Is it this compound called lectins? For most people, it's really not anything to be concerned about. First of all, beans are naturally gassy, but our gut health is really complex. So this is a good topic we'll revisit in the gut health webinar, because it doesn't have anything really to do with immunity, and it doesn't really have to do with inflammation. But essentially, this idea of things like nightshades, or which is like eggplant and potato and tomato and some things that grow underground. There are some people with arthritis. It's not related to cancer. It is not related at all to cancer, but some people who have arthritis or certain kinds of autoimmune joint related issues like rheumatoid arthritis or other arthritis forms, may find that they have certain food sensitivities. And so this is where it's really essential to work with the nutritionist, because you want to take a close look at each individual. So what ends up happening is that when this kind of information is sort of out in the media, it can make everyone cut down on a lot of healthy foods when they don't need to. So, if you eat things like, look at the Mediterranean diet, it's a lot of eggplant, it's a lot of tomatoes, it's a lot of, other kind of compound foods like that. And they're very healthy and very beneficial. So what we don't want to do is take kind of a very niche topic and extrapolate it out to everyone. So Laura, net to say, I would agree with your nutritionist that is not a concern. However, I've certainly worked with individuals who do find benefit from eating more of certain foods and less of others on an individual basis. And there's a lot of workaround. So if you rinse your beans, if you buy certain brands like Eden's Organic that make them with the seaweed that denatures the lectins, you don't even have to worry about it. So it really is not something to be concerned about, but at the same time, I definitely respect and appreciate kind of that individualization. But there's like 1,000 workarounds to help a person, figure these things out. When we talk about gut health, the same thing's going to come up, right? Where some people can eat some foods, other people find it difficult to consume, etc. Okay, so let's go through some of these key topics. So you already read this like 1,000 times while I was talking. So healthy fats, they help us regulate hunger and fullness. They have a key role in our inflammation. As I mentioned, omega-3 foods can help to support our immune system and reduce inflammation, and they're pretty potent with that. Let's talk about vitamin C. So just to mention, it is an antioxidant. Now, again, from your food, it's safe to have as you go through treatment. If you're going through treatment where you shouldn't have a lot of antioxidants, that's supplements. So eating a kiwi is great. Taking a vitamin C pill for some people might not be great. So we're just kind of talking here, how does this nutrient function? What is its job? How do I get it from food? So it helps protect ourselves from damage and is really essential for wound healing. So after surgery, or if you're dealing with, if you have wounds, I mean, it could even be as simple as something that happened to you while you were cooking, or, some other kind of injury, you need more vitamin C. And it can also, help reduce certain symptoms, maybe shorten the duration or the severity of things like a cold, especially in people who exercise. You need more vitamin C. People who smoke need more vitamin C. And during times of infection or stress, you need more vitamin C. Again, ideally in your diet, because it's really something that you want to make sure to only take supplements if you run that, again, by your doctor, your dietitian, pharmacist. Okay, vitamin D, and I have all these references down here, but basically vitamin D is a blood test. And so it's something that you could ask your primary doctor to check just to make sure. But when vitamin D, there's been a lot of press during COVID. When vitamin D levels are low, it can, your immune system doesn't have enough of it to function at its highest potential. So you have vitamin D receptors throughout the body, and it's important for our endocrine, cardiovascular, our nervous system. And so if your vitamin D levels are low, you might have a higher risk of cold and flu. There's some, early data around COVID that, again, vitamin D obviously is not a guarantee that you're not going to get COVID, but if you do get an infection, vitamin D is really important, and again, in helping your body to recover and to heal and support your respiratory system. And so vitamin D has been shown to be helpful in reducing the risk for certain kinds of cancers and promoting survivorship. And it's very involved in mechanisms having to do with aging. So if you're not already taking vitamin D as a supplement, which generally doesn't have a lot of contraindications, I would encourage you to talk to your doctor about, should I have a blood test? Should I be taking a supplement? Because all of us who live here in New England are at risk of having low vitamin D simply because of where we live. We don't have enough direct sunlight. You can get vitamin D in your diet, but either from genetics, skin tone, geography, or other risk factors, obesity, you may not be able to get enough vitamin D from food. But these are examples of foods that do have vitamin D. So sardines, dairy or non-dairy that's fortified. So some almond milks are fortified with vitamin D. Mushrooms are another great source of vitamin D. And Meg has a good question about nuts. So yeah, raw nuts, roasted nuts, they're all great. If you need to watch your sodium intake, then you should get low or no salt, but it's really more of a personal preference. But I would check the type of oil from the roasting. So ideally, you know, it's not a lot of peanut oils or cottonseed oils or soybean or vegetable oil. We want to minimize those kind of oils. Are those omega-6 more promoting of inflammation? So we kind of want to look more for like a, you know, canola or avocado oil would be better. But I would say with the nuts, when we look at research in terms of people who eat nuts and benefits, it's those research studies are really not in the weeds on raw versus roasted, to be honest. It's just, are you eating them or not? That's kind of the first bar to kind of go through. So zinc. Zinc is a really important mineral. And zinc is something that your immune system requires. So many of your immune cells, like your white blood cells, they need zinc in order to function properly. And if you don't have enough zinc, it makes it harder to heal your wounds, and you have a higher risk of things like pneumonia or other infections. And also lack of zinc can impact taste and smell. So some people who have taste changes related to cancer treatment, they're looking at it in terms of related to COVID, taking some zinc supplements can sometimes be helpful. But again, like I said, run it by your team. But zinc particularly is called zinc gluconate, around 25 or 30 milligrams has been shown to help when treatment affects your ability to sense a taste at all. It doesn't really help the metal taste. It doesn't really help things taste wrong. But if you're having trouble with any kind of sense of taste, zinc can be helpful. Does anybody know foods that are rich in zinc before I show you? Do you want to, I wonder if that's like kind of harder one. I mean, I kind of have a picture of one here, but what are some foods that are a good source of zinc? Does anyone have any guesses there? Can anyone name what's in the picture? Oh, there we go. Sorry, it took me a second to see this. Okay, mussels, yes, so delicious. Yep, excellent. Yeah, so shellfish and seafood are a good example of foods that are rich in zinc. And then there are other foods that are also a good source of zinc. Yep, clams are great, scallops, oysters, lobsters, shrimp is a really good source. So, you know, having some frozen shrimp around is great for protein and for zinc. Some cereals are fortified, cashews are a good source, chickpeas as well, oatmeal, beans, things like pumpkin seeds. So there are many. And then zinc also is helpful for reducing inflammation and just in general kind of reducing that oxidative stress, so being an antioxidant. So selenium is another antioxidant. We're gonna, one of the sessions, I think actually the one in May, is all about hormones. So for anyone who has an underactive thyroid, selenium is really important for you. Selenium is an antioxidant that is important for metabolism. So that's a good one. But it's also a key component for immunity. So many of the processes in your body rely on selenium to support your immune system. And so there's some really good food sources. These are Brazil nuts in the picture. That's a really good source of selenium. Also seafood again, so that shellfish is a good source of not only zinc, but selenium. Whole grains are a good source, meat, poultry, and eggs as well. It does from a lot of things like, grains and vegetables. It does depend on how much is in the soil, because we really get selenium in food through it going from the soil into the food that's being grown. So having kind of smaller farms and things like that, controlling your own garden, or getting not necessarily organic, but kind of local produce is something that can be really helpful. But selenium is definitely a good one to go after. And these are some other food sources that you can think about as well. But the Brazil nuts are great. And again, you're seeing some themes here, right? So we're seeing whole grains. We are seeing things like seafood. Seafood is a really great source of these minerals that support our immune system. So magnesium is another mineral. We have some handouts on these as well, that are on the website, or that your nurse or any other provider can email or print to you from our share drive. But magnesium is another important mineral that is helpful for our immune system, helpful against constipation, for digestive health, and just really important for our cardiovascular and nervous system. It helps us like kind of calm and de-stress and relax. And these are some food sources. So chocolate is a good one, dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds, almonds, spinach, beans, cashews, potato, avocado, whole grains like oats, blackstrap molasses. I know we talked about this one last month as it related to stress and sleep. And so you can see that molasses right here. So again, getting this variety of plant foods is really key for the immune supporting anti-inflammatory. This is more of a summer topic, but it doesn't relate to our May topic. I thought I'd throw in here for the immune system. But in terms of grilling, which I don't know how many people, some people grill in the winter. But what we want to do with grilling in terms of thinking about our immune system and cancer risk, again, this is like low down in the contributing factors, but definitely something to think about is having leaner cuts or vegetarian based items on your grill and avoiding the charring. So this like burned hot dog here. So we want to really try to use lower sugar marinades and flip things often. And you can char vegetables all you want. It's a different protein, so it doesn't develop the carcinogenic compound. So just again, thinking about how we prepare our proteins can also be helpful in terms of that immunity support. And then lastly, I think we talked about most of these. We didn't mention watermelon, but that's probably because it's the winter. But in the summer, that's a great source for some immune supportive foods. Acai berries are just another great berry from other parts from South America. And you can buy the frozen packets and put them if you're making like a smoothie or a smoothie bowl. That's another good berry that has that dark pigment. And miso, which is in the soy family, is a really great immune support as well. And so whether that's miso soup or you use it as like a seasoning, that's a great option. And then lastly, I think, again, there's just a couple more food items to, call to your attention, but these are some great anti-inflammatory foods here. When we talked about spices, we didn't really talk about ginger, but that's really one of the best. It's also great for helping to reduce nausea. Beets, we didn't talk about either. Beets are one of my favorites. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. I buy the ones that are already like peeled and cooked and vacuum sealed, so I can just cut them up really quick. Beet greens are very healthy as well, but they have a lot of really heart healthy compounds and gut friendly fiber. And then celery, we didn't even mention that one either, but celery is excellent when we think about our heart health, as well as that fiber, and a really great vegetable for just overall immunity and anti-inflammation. So that was a lot. I want to thank everybody for participating and for being here today. Hopefully you learned a lot about foods that support your immune system, foods that help to reduce excess inflammation, and kind of that overall lifestyle picture. So I would love to hear from you any action steps that you're going to take away. So I think I'm gonna tackle that kohlrabi that's in my next farm share. But I do want to encourage you to visit our website and check out some of the materials there. And as I mentioned, there are even more that will be added soon that your people in your clinic have access to. It's called the P Drive. So you can ask them for more nutrition information. And yeah, it was great. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and for participating. I look forward. Oh, Maxine, let me, I'm going to pull the website back up and show you guys. So here is, it's New England Cancer Specialists.org. So if I go back, this is the webinars page. But I'm going to go back here and just show you some examples. So up here, if you go to New England Cancer Specialists.org and then you go to support and well-being, you'll see nutrition. And then that's how we get to here. And so, as I mentioned, there are even more of these coming. But like if you want to look at foods, as we mentioned, rich in magnesium, you can kind of come here. Sorry, it's super slow because I've got Zoom on. But you can see here some magnesium rich foods that we talked about, why it's important, benefits, food sources, etc. And so there are a lot more topics coming and other materials that you'll have access to. Oh, and I guess I can show you quickly like a recipe or two, because I think that's, sorry, I have too many things open. Can you, let's see here. There we go. Can you, I think you can see me clicking through here. Okay, so if we go into the recipes, like here's a salad with beets. This is just an example, and there are definitely a lot more. But you'll see here, we'll mention like maybe it's good for a side effect, but like it's just good in general. You'll see, you know, everything will look the same. The ingredients, the directions, there might be some like notes and quick tips of like how to prepare things more simply. And then there's the nutrition information included here. So if you want to know how much fiber is in this recipe, how many grams of protein, all of that's included here for all the recipes. Can you see the PDF? Maybe?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Yeah, you can see it.
So that's kind of how you can navigate to the website. Your provider can share even more. We'll have more coming. I really want to thank everyone, and I look forward to hearing about some immune supporting ingredients that you used after this. And I love the idea of, you know, us all sharing ideas. So thank you all so much for joining today.